Hi everyone, it's good to be here today. Thank you, Dr. Doriani, for allowing me to have this time here. One of our core offerings in the DMIN curriculum has to do with how quickly our culture is changing in North America and what it means to lead congregations in Christian missions in a very intercultural context. So the class is called The Church's Mission in Changing Cultures. So for example, the Pew Research Center estimates that as early as next year, we'll surpass the highest proportion of the U.S. population that is foreign-born. So the record was back in 1890, so we're due to pass that within the next few years. And an interesting other thing that's happening is that among the second generation, those who have at least one immigrant parent, their population is growing even more rapidly. So that by 2020, it's estimated that 18% of the U.S. population will be second generation. And so what we're finding is that God's bringing the nations here, of course, and that how do we equip our congregants, those in our churches, to articulate and embody their faith to neighbors from all over the world, to really appreciate what the Apostle Paul did when he went from city to city and really appreciated the different nuances of culture that he was engaging. That to the Jew he became like a Jew. To those who weren't under the law he became as one not under the law. For what reasons? So that many might be saved and come into a knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ. So this class is going to look at how the translatable gospel is embodied socially at the intersection of so many different cultures. We'll be looking at different theologies of culture and approaches to contextualization. And we'll have two main criteria. How do we test these understandings by two main criteria? One, faithfulness to the biblical script, and the other is fittingness for the local stage. And that really those two things have to simultaneously be true for us to really be translating the gospel into the lives of our families and our neighbors. And then participants are going to bring their own case studies. What are the practices in your congregation that you're already doing to reach out to your local community, to your intercultural cities, but also how you partner internationally with both national church leaders and other cultures. And we're going to study and evaluate how those practices contribute to the vital signs of shalom, of bringing God's peace, not just in terms of being worshipers of God, learning biblical studies, learning prayer, learning the practices of a congregation, but how do we disciple people in their work life, in their family life, in their role as citizens? Do we have a robust enough model of disciple making that really addresses the breadth and depth of the gospel? So we'll be looking at that. And then finally, participants are going to construct a theology of congregational Christian missions. A lot of times we really focus our disciple making just on how can we equip evangelists? How can we equip individuals to share their faith? That's very important, isn't it? But what we see in the New Testament is that Paul and Peter and others are trying to shape congregations for performances of the gospel in intercultural contexts. And so participants in the class are going to be developing a theology of congregational performances of the gospel in very diverse cultural contexts. So that's what's coming up. I hope you'll consider coming, bringing your own case studies, because we're going to be learning from each other and from different cultures in the global church about what it means to embody the gospel together.